Got a question coming in from Jesse Keller. Appreciate that, Jesse. We'll start with Eric's take on this one. Defensive line worries me the most so far. Who's going to be out? I believe it's our prime pass rusher.
Yeah, I think I understand the concern. Defensive line is actually not at all a concern for me. I feel really, really good about that position group based upon what I've heard this fall. I think Brandon Dorlus was singled out by Tony Toyota as the alpha of the entire defense, but obviously specifically to the defensive line. I expect he's trimmed down. He's going to be an edge guy almost exclusively, not necessarily as an outside linebacker, but he's going to be playing defensive end. I think he's a name to know as a pass rusher for sure. I think the transfers, and this is another thing earlier I mentioned, kind of the fact that Cardwell, the Whittington, another person I talked to in terms of these upcoming transfers, were just raving about Casey Rogers and Jordan Riley. Those guys hadn't got here. They just got here in the fall. Those guys aren't pass rushers necessarily, but these are huge human beings. I mean, I just interviewed Jordan a couple of days ago. He's like 6'6", 325 pounds. I mean, he's a massive man. It's a mountain of a person. Maybe one of your biggest people on the entire football team, to be honest. I think Riley and Rogers are going to play a lot. In fact, again, there's been those who've been watching the whole thing have heard me talk about limited practice information. The one thing that we regularly have seen is offensive line against defensive line reps. And when the defensive line is gone, it's been Rogers and Riley with the top unit every time. So I don't know if that means they're going to start. I don't know if they're – I don't want to read too much into it because sometimes like Dorlus is on another field or Amavai is on a different field doing something else. So maybe it doesn't mean too much. But those guys are at least getting opportunity to work against the first team offensive line. So I think that's notable. I'm not worried about the defense of line at all. I think the front seven is going to be awesome at Oregon. I'm worried about if there's this place I'm worried, it's the secondary, just because of lack of experience there. But I think you're going to see Oregon go 8, 9, 10 deep on the defensive line and be really, really productive there. I mean, I couldn't even really, with good conscience, give you a prediction of who I think the starting defensive line is going to be, because I think there's so many capable guys. Like a guy like a Popo and a Keonmore Hudson are definitely starting caliber players. They just started a ton of games last year. It's possible neither of those guys are regular starters this year because some of the transfers and some of the younger guys developing. It's also possible those guys start every game. That's a position group where I don't have a ton of concerns. I get the pass rush thing, losing Kayvon, but DJ Johnson looks awesome. I think there's a question from other Eric about Mace Funa. He's working at outside linebacker at the jack position. It's a weird deal where that position isn't part of your base defense, I don't think. So you're going to see it kind of rotated in and out a little bit. He might play a couple different spots, but he's definitely a name to know as well. But I think DJ is your primary edge guy who's going to be probably playing the most snaps from what I've seen.
I think a lot of the concern from fans is coming from, when Kayvon wasn't on the field last year, the pass rush took a big dive, but there's a lot of players who look really good, and they even made a lot of progress over the course of the entire year last year. And also the scheme with the defensive line is going to be completely different. You're not going to have these 5 techs playing in a 4-eye, or you're not going to have these 3 techs trying to play on the outside. And it's just going to be a completely different scheme, especially with a defensive-minded head coach. And you have a guy like Tosh Lupoy who's just coaching, I think, defensive line in the NFL. And then you have a bunch of different staff members who could sit there and, dive into, okay, what works with this body type typically? There was in the COVID year, we had Kayvon playing the 4-eye, which was the most frustrating thing I have watched in my entire life. A pure 5 tech who could potentially be an outside backer before he was a 4-eye was playing in the 4-eye. That's not going to be stuff we're going to be seeing. We're going to be seeing, a 4-eye is going to be a guy, the bigger guys who maybe were playing 3 tech last year, but they're a little faster. They lost a little weight. They could play 4-eye. But you're not going to see these edge players pushing on the inside, and it's going to be a lot easier for guys to get pressures than it was previously.
Yeah, the defensive line excites the hell out of me this year. I'm pumped up, man. I was talking about it on Twitter with the guy the other day, and they were thinking, this could be one of the better D lines we've had in a couple of years now. Maybe going back to almost the Armstead Buckner era, where you had guys up front that were really good, and then you had depth. You had guys behind them. They love to rotate on the defensive line. You need to rotate. So no, I'm a big believer in what they've got going on, and I think the transfer portal really helped out the defensive line, probably almost as much as they helped any other team on the whole team last year. So, or over the offseason. So let's go. I'm pumped up.